So when you're in your comfortable supine position, just take a few moments to scan the body from head to toe. And we're looking to really identify if there's any part of the body that you can sense that you're holding on to tension. There might be one part of the body where you're perhaps holding a little higher than the other. You might notice a little tightness through the shoulders, through the hips. You might find that it's quite difficult to calm down your mind, to switch off from your to-do list. So we'll gift ourselves these few moments to just get our zen on. Taking care to unclench the jaw, to relax the tongue in the well of the mouth, to soften the cheeks and the chin, to release the eyebrows. Allow space across the forehead. Feel the weight of the back of your head sink a little more deeply into the earth beneath you. And feel your body supported here. Notice the weight of your arms by your side. And perhaps turn the palms up towards the ceiling in a gesture of openness, ready to receive, to release anything that doesn't serve you. Allow that weight through the length of the spine, across the back of the hips, and just let the legs become heavy. If you've chosen to bend the knees because of any discomfort in the lower back, you might feel more comfortable resting the knees together and widening that space at the back of the hips. Make any adjustments you need so that you don't feel distracted. Now bring your full focus to the breath, following the breath from the tip of the nose along the nasal passages. Taking some time to slow the breath down. Deepening the inhalation. Lengthening the exhalation. Bringing your breath into balance. Perhaps noticing the length of your breath in, the length of your breath out. And without judgment, just noticing if one breath is longer or shorter than the other. And drawing the length of the breath towards balance. Equal length to the inhale and to the exhale. Feel the breath naturally in the top third of the lungs, widening and expanding here. Every out-breath. Feeling any tension in your body, simply ease into the earth beneath you. Through this deepened, lengthened breath, feel that expansion through the lungs and the rib cage, directing your inhalation to the base of the lungs, then exhaling fully and emptying the lungs. Expanding and widening into the space that surrounds you, allowing the weight of your upper body to settle a little more deeply into the space beneath you. As you continue to deepen that in-breath, feel the belly rise on the inhale, Then allow the belly to soften and release on the exhale. Inhaling deeply. Exhaling fully. Following the breath to the belly, the chest, the collarbones. Exhaling from the collarbones, the chest, and the belly last. Practicing this deep yogic breath. Slowing the body and the mind down. Switching off from that fight or flight mode. And welcoming a sense of calm. Maintain your focus on the breath. Take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And we'll start to make each exhalation a little noisier. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. On this next exhalation, let the breath go with an audible sigh. Take a moment again to return your awareness to the shape of your body. If you've chosen to bend the knees, take a moment to extend the legs along the mat. Draw the feet a little closer together. Feel the hands resting either side of the hips. Then on an inhalation, lift both arms overhead and take a long stretch through the front of the body. Extend the right hand a little further away. Extend through the left hand. Pointing through fingers and toes, taking full length through the front of the body. On an out breath, hug the right knee to the chest, so bending that knee in, placing the hands to the shin. A little pressure here on the shin, just to allow that release of the lower back to the floor. Inhale and lengthen again. Take that long stretch, pointing through fingers and toes. Exhaling to draw the left knee in. Again, applying a little gentle pressure, just to widen the space in the lower back. Inhale, lengthen once more, arms overhead, pointing through fingers, pointing through toes. Exhaling to draw the fingers in towards the palms, making fists, drawing the toes in towards the shins, flexing the feet. Hold that tension rather than holding the breath. Inhale to open the fingers, point the toes. Then exhale to hug both knees in. Hands to the shins. Allowing a little gentle rock from one hip to the other. Just clearing a little space again into the lower back and across that tight fascia over the sacrum. Reposition both feet on the floor so the knees are bent. We want to have the heels hip width apart, a little gap between the knees, turning the palms once more up towards the ceiling, either side of the hips. Shoulder blades drawn together. Exhale to draw the tummy button in. Inhale to lift and lengthen through the right leg. So we start with that toe pointed, then as you exhale, flex the toe towards the shin. Inhale to point, exhale to flex. Gently mobilizing the ankle. As you come to the next flexion, push a little more keenly through the heel, drawing the back of the right hip to the floor, feeling securely and equally weighted through the back of the hips. Exhale to draw the tummy button in, engaging the core as you float the right thigh down until it's level with the left. Use the big toe to draw 3 circles in towards the midline of the body. Then change direction, take those circles the opposite way. Bring the foot back to flexion, engage the core, then float that heel down to rest an inch from the mat. Keep that heel resting an inch from the mat. And this time we'll draw circles using the heel to mobilize the hip. So we feel that release inside the hip, the inner thigh, the outer thigh, changing direction, going through full range of movement. Rest that heel again an inch from the floor. Inhaling now to lift both arms overhead, pointing through the toes, resting the hands an inch from the floor. On an exhale, draw the tummy button in, draw the knee towards the chest and lift the sternum towards the thigh. So it's like a little crunch. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, a little crunch as you roll up. Inhale and lengthen. Exhale, repeat that crunch. We'll do 3 more of these little tummy crunches, warming up the core, switching on those muscles. And as you come to this last crunch, bring the hands to an interlock behind the thigh, keep the sternum lifted, then take your time to slowly, gently roll through the spine and rest the back of the head to the floor. Extend and lengthen through the right leg, bringing the sole of the foot parallel to the ceiling, allowing a little space to the back of the hamstring. Try to keep the hips rested to the back of the mat, inhaling to point, exhaling to flex, guiding that right thigh a little closer towards the chest, pushing a little more keenly through the heel, ironing out that soft bend in the knee. As you exhale, soften the knee once more and bring that right ankle to rest on the outside of the left thigh. Widen the arms so the hands are at shoulder height, palms turned up towards the ceiling. As you come to your next out breath, simply roll that right knee to your left side and turn your gaze along the length of the right arm. So we're finding a little space to the side of the right hip, into the side of the rib cage, exhaling to weight that right shoulder towards the floor. Remaining relaxed, unclenched through the jaw. Then on and out breath, engage the core once more, drawing the tummy button in, rolling the knee back towards center. Unhook that right foot. And we'll kind of do this in reverse. So we're going to bring the left leg up and over. And we'll take that left knee to the right side, turning the gaze over the left arm. So we're balancing that twist on the opposite side, keeping that left shoulder weighted back to the floor. Expanding and widening into the side of the rib cage, allowing gravity to draw that knee a little closer to the mat. Then as you exhale, draw the tummy button in, roll that knee back towards center and unhook the left foot. So we're back to having both knees bent, feet flat to the floor, that little gap again between the knees. Inhaling now to lift and lengthen through the left leg, pointing and flexing once more through the joint. Acknowledging that perhaps one leg feels a little tighter, a little heavier than the other. Push through that left heel, sole of the foot parallel to the ceiling as you draw that left hip back towards the floor. Keeping the core engaged to float that left thigh down. Again, we're aiming for the thighs to be level as we use the big toe of the left foot to draw 3 circles in towards the midline of the body. Then change direction. Take those circles the opposite way, mobilizing the ankle, easing out any creaks and groans. Bring that foot back to flexion, keep the core engaged, then lower that heel all the way down to rest an inch from the floor. Use the heel to draw the circles. So the action now is to mobilize the hip joint rather than the ankle. As you change direction, you can feel that activation of the inner, the outer thigh. Resting the heel again an inch from the floor. Inhaling to lift the arms overhead, resting the backs of the hands on the floor, floating that left heel an inch from the mat. Inhaling to point through the toes, extend through the fingers. Exhaling to do that little crunch sequence on this side. So on the inhale, we lengthen, pushing the heel away, lifting the arms overhead. On the exhale, we draw the thigh towards the chest. It's almost as though we're pushing the lower back to the floor, encouraging that crunch. Again, we'll do another 3 of these little crunches on this side. And as you come to that last crunch, we'll reposition the hands behind the thigh, remain lifted in the upper body just for a moment, then slowly release back to the floor, resting the back of the head, extending through that left leg, pushing through the heel, drawing the thigh a little closer to the chest. Keep allowing the weight at the back of the hips to sink to the floor, pressing through the sole of the left foot. Then on an out breath, hug that left knee in, bend the knee to the chest, draw the right knee in. We'll create a gentle twist again to release the lower back. So widen the arms back to that T-shaped formation, palms turned up, rolling both knees firstly to the right side as you turn your gaze over the left shoulder. And again, just take a moment to find the weight into that left shoulder, to breathe a little more space in and around the left rib cage. Exhale to draw the tummy button in, supporting the weight of the legs with core engagement as you roll back through center. Take the knees to the opposite side, this time breathing that right shoulder to the floor, turning the gaze comfortably along the length of the right arm. Let the weight of your upper body relax to the floor. No clenching, no tension. Then on the out breath, draw the tummy button in and we'll draw the knees back towards center. Now, just to give a little support for the lower back, I'm going to suggest that we place the palms underneath the bottom. So this will effectively change the angle of the hips of the pelvis. We're gently almost tipping the pelvis up, which pushes the lower back to the floor, and it just keeps the lower back nice and safe. We're going to push both heels up towards the ceiling. When we're seated, we call this position Dandasana. Dandasana is far easier to achieve in this supine position because we can some way get towards straight legs, and we've got the support of the back of the head all the way down to the tailbone, lining up against the floor. Make sure the shoulder blades are drawn together just to create that strong base in the upper body. Then inhale to point the toes, exhale to flex. Inhale to point. Notice on the flex that gentle stretch to the back of the calves. Inhaling to point, exhaling to flex. On an out breath, push the lower back to the floor, keep the core engaged, and lower the heels down about a third of the way. So a little more challenging on the core. Let's alternate pointing the right toe, bringing that foot to flexion, pointing the left toe, bringing that foot back to flexion. Then on the next exhalation, hug both knees in towards the chest. Replace the feet to the floor, hip width distance, insides of the feet parallel. Palms again, either side of the hips, turned up towards the ceiling. Push down into the soles of the feet, coming to a gentle diagonal here. So if we were to draw a diagonal line from the knee through the hip to the shoulder, not putting any stress on the spine, inhaling to press the shins forward, perhaps feeling a little more opening through the front of the thighs into the hip flexors. Gently peel the heels from the floor, coming onto the balls of the feet, lifting the thighs a little higher again, perhaps feeling you can open the sternum up towards the chin. Squeeze the right heel to the floor, Then lift that heel from the mat again. Squeeze the left heel to the floor. As you lift that heel again, visualize pressing the shins forward, lifting the thighs a little higher once more. Keeping on the balls of the feet as we start to gently roll down through the spine. Take your time, allow vertebra by vertebra to release, to ease into the mat beneath you. Feel that secure, solid base across the middle back, the lower back, and allow the back of the hips to fully release. Slide the feet towards one another, pressing the heels together, pressing the balls of the feet together. Then widening the knees, coming into a supine Baddha Konasana. Here we simply allow gravity to open into the inner thighs, to create space in and around the hips. And it's okay to listen to any messages coming back from the body, to just acknowledge any resistance in the hips or the knees. Lifting both arms overhead and allowing the backs of the hands to rest on the floor. Perhaps finding a little resistance in the shoulder. Just easing the weight of the collarbones wider, softening the weight of the upper body back to the floor. Then as you exhale, draw the tummy button in, slide the thighs towards one another. Reposition the feet hip width apart and float the hands back down either side of the hips. Exhale, draw the tummy button in, hug both knees in towards the chest. And I'm mindful that we've been laid down for a while, so if you have low blood pressure, you might want to take your time and roll to your side. If you're feeling sprightly, we'll take hold of the back of the thighs and simply roll ourselves up into a seated position. And we'll just take a few moments to warm the spine, rolling backwards and forwards. And when you're ready, coming to a seated, cross-legged position. Just realised I've got my Tom Loves hoodie on, doing a little bit of advertising here. So he's actually created a bespoke hoodie for me, which says kind thoughts, kind words, kind intentions, because that's what I say is my little blessing at the end of the class. He's very clever. It's making me too warm because it's super snuggly. You're back. I could only see your ceiling before, Carolyn, but I figured that you were sorting yourself out and you were happy. Beautiful. So we'll come into a cross-leg position. Let's make it that we're all the same. So if we bring the right foot to the front, so that we keep track of what we've done on each side. Again, we want that sort of, imagine, if we will, this straight line from the back of the head to the tailbone. So imagine there's a wall behind you. You can lean back into that wall, shoulder blades drawn together, and it's helping to give you support. Every out breath, draw the tummy button in, hands either side of the hips, slide the right hand away, reach through the left hand and look up towards the fingertips of that hand. Bring the right elbow towards the waist, then follow that left hand over the midline of the body. Keep pressing through the fingertips. So we're kind of pulling that left hip to the floor, pushing through the fingertips of the left hand and expanding into the side of the rib cage. Inhale to lift and come back to center, wide through the front of the chest again, looking up to the fingers of the right hand as once more you come over the midline of the body. Press through the fingertips. Keep that weight equal through the sit bones. Then inhale to lift and come back to center. Right hand behind the hips, left hand to the right knee. Lift up and lengthen. Then follow the rib cage, coming into a twist on this side. Perhaps with the next out breath, you might find an extra inch or so as we come a little deeper into this twist. Then exhale, draw the tummy button in, Inhale, lift the arms up overhead. Pressing through the fingertips, drawing the shoulders down away from the ears, core engaged, wide through the rib cage. Then on the out breath, opposite hand to opposite knee, realigning the spine by lifting on the inhale, on the exhale, coming into that twist once more. On the out breath, engage the core. On the in breath, let's bring our gaze back towards the front of the room, repositioning the hands in front of the ankles. Inhale to lengthen out of the spine. Just take note of the position of the chin here. Ideally, we want to keep our gaze to the floor, so we're not putting undue pressure on the back of the neck. With the inhale, we lengthen. With the exhale, we gently start to walk the hands forward. So we're using the hands for support. Try not to extend so far that the shoulders lift. And then when you feel that you're kind of in an extended position, exhale to lower the elbows towards the floor. It's a target, it's not a command. You look relieved about that. Shoulder blades drawn together. Some of us are more comfortable in this position than others. If you find that you have a little bit more space in and around the hips or the inner thighs, you might want to position one fist on top of the other and bring the forehead to rest here. Again, it's something to aim for. It doesn't have to be, and it certainly isn't every day that we're in that comfortable position. Then as you exhale, draw the tummy button in, bring the gaze to the end of the fingertips and start to walk the hands back towards the ankles. Lovely. Don't forget to realign, reposition the hands behind the hips. Shoulder blades drawn together. Avoid leaning back. We want to remain lifted and lengthened. This time we're lifting the sternum towards the ceiling. We can turn our gaze up as we widen the knees and just open a little more cleanly into the front of the body. Then as you exhale, release, engaging the core, inhaling to bring your gaze forward. Then we'll simply switch that leg crossover. So opposite foot in front, behind. Oftentimes the second side is the side that doesn't want to play. So modify if you need any support under the knee, around the hip. And again, just line up the back of the head with the tailbone. Extend both arms forward. Bring the palms together, right forefinger over left. Create an interlock, opening the hands towards the heart. Keep the elbows soft, the shoulders down away from the ears as you turn the hands inside out. Inhale to lift the arms up, overhead. And we're just breathing through any resistance here. Sometimes we just can't get that full reach. Sometimes we feel a little drawn back by the shoulders. So work with the breath to come into a full expression of this posture, pressing through the palms, feeling the ears between the upper arms, and almost as though the weight of your sit bones is easing you back towards the earth. Keep that core engagement, then slide the hands back to chest level, turning the hands inside out, then bringing the hands behind the lower back. This time left forefinger over right, and again important to just adjust the chin position. Try to keep the chin parallel to the floor as you gently draw the hands away from the lower back. Shoulder blades drawn together so we get the maximum expansion through the chest, and we're comfortably working within the natural range of the shoulders. Then as you exhale, release. Reposition the hands behind the hips. Again, remaining upright. This time we're shifting our body weight forward. So pressing into the shins, lifting the thighs, the belly, the chest. Returning your gaze towards the ceiling and just enjoying a little deeper opening through the thighs, the hip flexors. As you exhale, engage the core. Reposition the sit bones on the mat. As you lift and lengthen through center, bring the hands once more in front of the ankles. Then on and out breath, just repeat that little forward fold. Now, oftentimes the second side is the side where we have a little less mobility. So on this side, just take note if there's any tension in the ankles. We don't want to push any tension into the joints. If it helps to rearrange the angle of the feet, then do so. And again, we're working towards easing the elbows towards the floor, perhaps bringing the forehead to rest on the two fists, whatever gives you that extended release. Make sure we can feel the sit bones fully connected to the mat, drawing the shoulder blades together to open through the sternum again. As you exhale, engage the core, then gently walk the hands back towards the ankles. Nice. Now widen the feet, coming into a wide leg seated position. I will always remind you that in a wide leg, it's a nice idea to just keep a little bit of cushion behind the knees. So try not to push the knees to the floor. We don't want to overwork the knee joints. Toes pointing up towards the ceiling and lifting and lengthening again. Feeling the back of the head line up with the tailbone. It's not unusual in this position to have tightness here that kind of pulls the body forward, or we feel that we've almost rolled back into the tailbone. So try to be lifted out of the sit bones, bringing the hands in front of the body. And then as you exhale, slide the hands forward. Pause where you feel that you're getting too much resistance from the inner thighs. Inhale to nourish and energize. Then exhale to slide a little more deeply into this fold. In an ideal world, the toes will be pointing up towards the ceiling. Just keeping that activation on the inner thighs, deepening the stretch here. Shoulder blades drawn together. Exhale to draw the tummy button in. Draw your gaze to the end of the fingertips. Keep looking forward as you walk the hands back towards the body. Nicely lifted, light out of the sit bones. Drawing the soles of the feet together. Repeating that Baddha Konasana, but this time in a seated posture. Allowing the knees to release. Inhaling to lift out of the sit bones. And rather than curving the spine, think about extending the sternum forward. So folding a little more neatly into this space. With an out breath, perhaps widening the knees. With an in breath, lifting out the sit bones. And just easing into this inner thigh stretch. As you exhale, draw the tummy button in, lift and lengthen back towards center. Take hold of the right foot. You might want to hook the index finger, middle finger around the big toe, or you might find it more comfortable just to take hold of the foot or the ankle and push through the heel. So a little bit of balance required. It's mostly getting into this tight muscle at the back of the thigh. So lifting out of the sit bones, extending into this stretch. If you're feeling it in the inner thigh, just make sure that you've not rolled back onto the tailbone. Then reposition that foot to center. And we'll switch over, do the same on the other side. If balance is starting to feel a little bit of an issue, you can take the opposite arm wide. Sometimes that helps. It's also a good message to remind yourself to keep the heart open. That's it. That just feels nicer, doesn't it? It feels looser. Then draw the foot back to center. Bringing out the big guns now. Keep the core engaged, pressing through the heels. Nice game of Skittles. Perfect. Good work. Keep the focus. Then when you're ready, bring the soles of the feet together. Good work. If you never try, you never know. So good on you. 10 out of 10 for getting those legs up. Then hinge forward again, just close into that space. Engage the core. Inhale to lift and come back to center. Whenever I teach that posture in schools, what's very funny is that the kids always look at it, and kids don't do what we do. So as adults, we look at it and go, oh, I can't do that. So we just don't. But kids go, I can do that, I can do anything. And they always just lift straight up. And of course, kids haven't learned about core engagement, so they all just fall back every time. It's quite amusing. Maybe I'm a bit sadistic. Extend both legs forward. So we're taking the tension out the inner thighs, we're resting the hips for a while, and we're coming back into the hamstrings. So toes pointing up towards the ceiling. And I'll turn side on to remind you that kind of typically in this posture, we compromise a little on the spine because it's quite hard to sit up straight. So try to visualize that nice straight line from the back of the head to the tailbone. So usually lifting the sternum is helpful and keeping the core engaged. Extend both arms forward. Bring the palms together again, this time interlocking left forefinger over right and turning the hands inside out. So when we did this opening earlier, the legs were crossed. When we lift the arms overhead now, there's something psychological, there's less resistance because we're in a very linear plane. When we've got the knees separated from the midline of the body gets really confused. Keep pressing through the palms, drawing the shoulders back and down from the ears. A little bit of jiggling perhaps in the thighs as we hold ourselves up. It's all good. Then as you exhale, keep the core engaged and float the hands back to chest level. Again, just because we've already done it in cross leg, we'll do it differently. Bring the hands behind, right forefinger over left. And again, just watch that curve creeping in. Lift and lengthen. Draw the hands away from the lower back. And just keep your gaze forward. I know it's difficult when you're looking at the screen, but we don't want to end up putting tension in the neck. Then as you float the hands back to the lower back, reposition the palms on the floor, either side of the hips. I think it's more comfortable to turn the fingers out. It's less tension on the wrists. As you walk the feet in, coming into a 90-degree angle at the knees. So we're creating a table and we don't want any soggy bottoms. So we're pressing the shins forward, lifting the thighs, opening the hip flexors, widening through the collarbones, creating space through the front of the body. Then exhaling to release and extending the legs forward once more. Lift and lengthen back into your Dandasana. Bring that right knee in. And we'll use the hands in front of the shin just to realign the spine, to really lift. We're using a little bit of purchase here to get ourselves tall. Keep the left hand wrapped around that right shin. Bring the right hand behind the hip. Lift up out of the sit bones. And then we're gently going to turn our gaze over that right shoulder. Try, if you can, to follow the side of the rib cage rather than following the nose. And then if you find that you've got a little more space to give in this twist, you can bring the elbow to the outside of the knee and just nudge yourself a little bit more deeply into the twist. Kind of using a little bit of resistance, using the elbow to push the knee back, using the knee to push the elbow out. Then as you exhale, release the tension, bring the gaze forward. Extend the right leg forward. We'll repeat the same shape on the other side. So don't forget that little lift and lengthen. Keep the right hand wrapped around the left shin. Lift up out of the sit bones. Then come into the twist on this side. I can't see you now, I've turned away. And then again, if you've got the space, bring the elbow over, lift up, and come a little more deeply into the twist. Make sure that that left toe is pointing up, or the right toe, sorry, is pointing up towards the ceiling. Then as you exhale, release and bring the gaze forward. Nice work. So let's shift off this position, come into an all fours position. And as you position your all fours, let's have knees underneath the hips, wrists underneath the shoulders. So we're creating a nice equally weighted shape. Elbows are soft. We want to avoid locking the elbows out, so keep them nice and soft. Shoulder blades again drawn together to avoid too much lifting through the back. Turn both toes under. Exhale, draw the tummy button in, keeping the gaze between the fingers as you roll up through the spine, then nodding the chin towards the chest. Resting on the tops of the feet, reversing that curve in the spine as you inhale to lift the sternum forward, lifting the tailbone just to give you that extra release. Then turn the toes under, exhale, roll up, nodding the chin again to the chest. Release back to a neutral spine position. Sliding the right foot back, turning the toe under, pushing through the heel. Done a little bit of work on the hamstrings, the inner thighs. So we just want to get into that little tight spot at the back of the calves now. Float that right foot up, keeping the hips square to the mat, the shoulders square, as you extend the left arm forward. Keep your gaze down between where the hands would have been. Keep that right elbow nice and soft. Then when you're ready, fold the right heel in towards the bottom. Use the left hand to grab hold of the top of the foot. And as you draw the heel a little closer to the bottom, again, just square off your position, hips and shoulders parallel to the mat, extending the sternum forward, deepening into that stretch at the front of the thigh into the hip flexor. As you exhale, release that toe back to the floor. Then slide that right shin forward. Pick the left knee up, and we're going to slide that left shin back. So we've got quite a steep bend going on in the right knee. We're almost getting that left hip to the floor. I say almost because we might not be quite. Then shuffle the right foot in so that the sole of the foot effectively cups the hip, cups the left hip. Couldn't remember the word. Nice. I've tricked you into coming into pigeon pose. See what I did there? Now I'm just going to take you forward in pigeon pose so that you're not focusing on what's going on in your lower back. So come down onto the elbows, but again, just check in with the shape of the spine. Let's not compromise and have that curve. Let's keep it nice and quiet. And again, we'll perhaps rest the forehead on one fist on top of the other. Or if you have a little more space in the back of that right thigh on the outside of the hip, you can bring the forehead onto the back of flat palms if that feels more comfortable. So you're nicely supported. Then when you're ready, lift the head from the back of the palms, bring the hands under the shoulders, lift up again, fold that left heel in, and the golden rule is opposite hand to opposite foot, or you'll fall over. If you do the same side, you'll be stuffed. So you're bringing the left heel in, you're taking hold of it with the right hand, and we're just easing into that gorgeous stretch to the front of the thigh and the hip flexor. I like it when I say the word gorgeous, everyone goes, what? What's gorgeous about that? Replace that foot to the floor, toe turned under, so we can push back and release straight into a plank pose. Lovely. So plank, if you remember, the thighs are parallel to the floor, so we try not to have the bottom too lifted. Nice diagonal line from the shoulder through the hip to the heel. Then lowering down, knees, chest, chin. Bottom gently lifted. Inhaling to lift the chest. Then gently pushing back. Taking a rest for a moment in child's pose. Lifting the fingers from the mat, pressing into the wrists. Just giving us a little more space under the underarms to the side of the rib cage. Then lower the palms and lift yourself back up into that all fours position. In child's pose, the knees tend to come together, so reposition the knees hip width apart. Now slide the left foot back, and we'll repeat this little sequence on the opposite side. So we started by pushing through the heel, deepening the stretch into the back of the calf. Then as we floated that heel up, realigning the hips and the shoulders parallel to the floor, extending the right arm forward. Little bit of balance here, a little bit of core engagement. If at any time you're just not feeling it, just drop the toe back to the floor, helps you regain your balance. Then when you're ready, bring that left heel in, take hold of the top of the left foot with the right hand. In an ideal world, we want to try and lift that knee up, drawing the shoulder blade together, opening into the front of the thigh, into the hip flexor. Much easier to do because we've done this pigeon pose on this side. Then when you're ready, lower that foot to the floor, then slide that shin forward. Pigeon pose on the opposite side, turning the right toe under, sliding the right thigh back. Resting on the top of the foot and then wiggling that left foot underneath the right hip. Nice. So you'll know you've got it right when you're keeping your foot warm. I've still got a little bit of a gap, but I know that that's where I'd like it to be. Then, as we did before, we're going to take our weight forward. You can rest on the forearms, you can rest on one palm on top of the other, or one fist on top of the other. And just allow that deeper opening into the side of the hip, into the front of the hip flexor. Then once more, we'll lift the upper body, keeping the core engagement so we don't ever kind of like expose the lower back. Bringing the right heel in, using the left hand to grab hold, making sure that the hips and the shoulders are in the same plane. And as you extend the sternum forward, just open that right hip a little more deeply to the floor. Nice. Good work. Then as you exhale, release that foot back to the floor, turning the toe under, pushing once more into that plank pose. Just balancing out the hips, balancing out the shoulders. Then lowering down, knees, chest, chin, bottom is up. Inhaling to lift the chest. Then exhaling to extend and release back once more into child's pose. Resting the ears between the upper arms. And just allowing the weight of your sit bones to push back. Then when you're ready, come back up again to that all fours position. So just mindful that some of those postures might have just extended a little bit your natural range of movement in the lower back. We'll repeat the cat stretch, turning the toes under, exhaling, drawing the tummy button in, rolling up through the spine, nodding the chin to the chest. Coming back into that neutral spine position, keeping the toes turned under, push the sit bones back. So again, think about that alignment. As we lift the bottom, lift the knees, push the sit bones to the back of the room, align the ears between the upper arms, creating a diagonal from the wrist through the shoulder to the sit bones, then a diagonal from the sit bones all the way down to the heels. Let's bend the right knee in, push the left heel to the mat. Switch to the opposite side. So we're just gently working through one heel, then the other. Then pressing both heels to the mat, inhaling to lift the tailbone, pushing the thighs towards the back of the room. Then on and out breath, bending the knees, sit back on the heels. As we've been upside down, we'll just take a moment in child's pose, with the wrists either side of the ankles, and just use the wrists to draw little circles, mobilizing the wrists, taking any strain away. If you're a little bit out of practice with down dog, chances are we'll have taken the weight forward rather than back. It just puts a little bit of tension there. And when you're ready, we're going to come up into a hero pose. So a hero pose, sometimes called Japanese pose, is where the knees are bent. So if you're imagining you're at a Japanese tea ceremony, this is how you would be sitting, with a straight line from the back of the head to the tailbone. Now, it's not unusual in this posture to have resistance in the knees, in the ankles. So we do need to use little modifications if we're really feeling that we're holding on for grim life. So usually the easiest modification is to pop a pillow underneath the bottom just to create a little more space. If the tension is in the front of the ankles, we really need like a towel rolled up there. Usually gents struggle with that space at the front of the ankles because, of course, well, one is assuming they haven't had the same practice we have of wearing heels or being on tippy toes. So they usually find they're quite resistant to that shape. Lovely. So I will face forward so that we're all doing the same thing. If you bring your hands together once more into an Anjali Mudra, exhale, draw the tummy button in, then gently feel as though you're pressing the shins into the floor. So this is you anchoring, rooting down into the earth. Then on an inhale, lift the sit bones from the heels, lift the arms up overhead, keep the shoulders down away from the ears. And rather than leaning back into the knees, into the shins, let's root down, lift the sternum. And as you bring your gaze up towards the thumb, permit a little gentle back bend in the upper thoracic spine. So try not to curve the lower back, try not to push the thighs or the hips forward, and just ease back into a natural back bend. Lovely. Then as you exhale, engage the core, bring the hands back towards heart. Hinge forward once more. Coming into that all fours position, repeating once more that cat stretch. So we've done a lot of cat stretches today. It's just a reminder how gorgeous this posture can be and how helpful it is if you do suffer from any tension in the lower back. Just working through that full natural range of movement, rounding through the spine. Returning once more to a neutral spine position. Lovely. So I'll invite you now to take a nice comfortable Shavasana position. So you may prefer to lay on your back once more. Some people like to do Shavasana seated. I was always taught that in the West, we just have the inability to sit up straight for any length of time, which is why we always choose to lie down. This is your Shavasana, so if you would prefer, you can always roll onto your side. I would suggest that left side is best. Keeps that parasympathetic system from kicking in and thinking you need to be somewhere else. So once more, we'll take that little journey through the body, scanning the body from head to toe. And just tuning in to any messages back from the body. Perhaps you're aware of working through some pain or limitation that you had at the start of the session. Perhaps you're conscious that you feel a little fatigued in a particular muscle group that perhaps is a little underused. Honor your body. Recognize how fantastic it is, how much it supports your health and your well-being. And let's take a moment to be grateful for your wonderful body. remind yourself to unclench the jaw, to separate the teeth, to feel the tongue resting in the well of the mouth. Relaxing the eyebrows, softening the temples. Feeling your hands and your feet heavy and released. Once more in a gesture of being open, ready to receive deep relaxation. Turn the palms towards the ceiling and allow the fingers to soften. Feel the weight of your body through those familiar pressure points, the back of the head, through the shoulders, the back of the hips. Rather than holding yourself, let Mother Earth hold you. Give yourself permission to release, to let go, and to ease a little more deeply into a relaxed and calm state. Relax the right foot. Relax the left foot. Feel both feet fully released and relaxed. Relax the ankles, the calves, and the shins. Just let that tension go in the lower legs. Let your legs become heavy. Soften in and around the knees. Feeling the right inner thigh roll open and release. Let the left inner thigh go. Feel the backs of the thighs spread into the earth. Comfortably weighted through the hips. Feel the whole of your lower body, soft, heavy, completely released. Soften the fingers of the right hand, of the left hand. Soften the wrists. Relax the forearms. Release the elbows. Feel the upper arms heavy and relaxed by your side. Finding space in and around the right shoulder, in and around the left shoulder. Supporting the weight of your upper body against the flats of the shoulder blades. Expanding and widening into the chest, through the collarbones. And feeling the whole of your upper body sink a little more deeply into the earth. Feel the back of your head fully supported. Aware once more of those familiar connections through the back of the head, the shoulders, the back of the hips. But noticing your body so much heavier, much more deeply released into the earth beneath you. As though you can draw the energy direct from the earth. up through every cell in your body, re-energizing, revitalizing. With every inhalation, filling your body with positive energy. With every exhalation, releasing your body of negative energy. Clearing your body of toxins. Recharging your batteries. Return your focus to the breath. As you rest here, simply breathe here. As the sound waves of the singing bowl wash over you, tune in now to the quiet. Return your full attention to the breath. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth, filtering the breath, fully releasing. Become aware that every inhalation is a waking breath, returning your awareness to the physical body, to your space within this room. Taking a few moments to start to return sensation. Maybe wiggling fingers, wiggling toes, wiggle the jaw a little, wiggle the nose. Rotate the ankles, the wrists. And if you wish, take a long stretch through the body. You may prefer to hug the knees to the chest and feel that space in the lower back release to the floor. In your own time, roll to the side, which feels most welcoming to you. Pausing there for a moment to blink the eyes open. Then returning once more to a comfortable seated position. Now bring your hands to an Anjali Mudra. Touch to the head for kind thoughts, to the lips for kind words, and to the heart for kind intentions. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste. Lovely work. You can't go for a snooze now, though. It's just not the appropriate time, is it? Maybe you can. Who's watching? You do whatever you need to do. So you're all still on mute. So if anyone wants to share anything, then